Thank you, Mr. President. The amendment before us is one that recognizes the sanctity and dignity of life at all stages of development. I'm grateful to those who have helped advance this important legislation. Senator Zahn, Senator Schultz held a subcommittee on this. Many other individuals who are passionate about this issue. Senator Bertrand, thank you for your support. The question before us is, when does life begin? When were each of us individuals? Individuals with our own DNA, separate from that of our mother and father. The answer to these questions are backed not by religious views only, but also by science. The answer is straightforward: at conception. The amendment before us reads as follows. The sovereign state of Iowa recognizes that life is valued and protected from the moment of conception, and each life from that moment is accorded the same rights and protections guaranteed to all persons by the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and the laws of this state. This section shall not be construed to create or recognize a right to an abortion, to impose civil or criminal liability on a woman upon whom the abortion is performed, or to prohibit the use of any means of contraception. Since Roe v. Wade, over 60 million, let me repeat that, 60 million babies, innocent babies, babies that committed no crime, babies that would have become men and women just like you and me, were killed in the womb in the name of choice. Some babies, despite the intentional actions of a physician who attempted to take the life of these innocent babies, actually survived the painful experience of abortion. One such individual, Melissa Oden, testified before the United States Congress. I have received permission from her and would like to read part of her transcript of her testimony. This is what she says. I am not here today to testify as an expert in the analysis of how abortion is restricted or permitted pre or post viability around the world, or under what set of circumstances. I am here today, however, to put a face to what late-term abortions look like and to the importance of infants born alive after abortion being provided timely and appropriate medical care. As you see in my medical records, in August of 1977, my biological mother, a 19-year-old college student, was forced to undergo a saline infusion abortion. My medical records indicated that she was believed to be approximately 20 weeks pregnant with me at that time. A saline infusion abortion involves injecting a toxic salt solution into the amniotic fluid surrounding the preborn child in the womb. The intent of the toxic salt solution is to scald the child to death from the outside in. If you read about it online or in medical journals, you'll find children like me are called red-skinned or candy apple babies because that toxic solution would turn the skin bright red as it peeled away and moved internally into the organs. This abortion procedure typically lasted about 3 days, 72 hours. The child soaked in the toxic salt solution until their life was effectively snuffed out, and then premature labor was induced with the intent of that deceased child being delivered. In my own case, I didn't soak in the toxic salt solution for just 3 days. My medical records indicate that I soaked in it for 5 days. For 5 days, I soaked in that toxic salt solution while multiple attempts were made to induce my biological mother's labor with me to dispel my dead body. Finally, on the 5th day of the abortion procedure, her labor was successfully induced. I should have been delivered dead that day as a successful abortion, a deceased child. But by the grace of God, I was born alive. I can't even begin to imagine the horrible pain and suffering that I experienced during those 5 days of the abortion procedure and in the days and weeks that followed. Abortion doesn't spare a child from suffering. It causes suffering. I weighed a little less than 3 pounds, 2 pounds 14 ounces to be exact, when I was delivered at St. Luke's Hospital in Sioux City, Iowa. In that final step of the abortion procedure, which indicated to the medical professionals that my birth mother was much further along in her pregnancy than she had realized and the abortionist failed to recognize or admit to. In fact, one of the first notions in the medical records state that I looked like I was about 30 weeks of gestational age when I survived. Sadly, whether I was 31 weeks or 20 weeks, what happened to me was permitted by law. The fight for my life was far from over, and after I was delivered in the failed abortion, in 2013 I learned through contact with my biological mother's family, who I am incredibly thankful for to have in my life, along with members of my biological father's family, that not only was the abortion forced upon her against her will, but also that it was my maternal grandmother, a nurse, who delivered me in the final steps of this abortion procedure. Unfortunately, I also learned that when my grandmother realized the abortion had not failed to end my life, she demanded that I left to die. I may never know how exactly 2 nurses who were on staff that day found out about me or where they found me, but what I do know is that their willingness to fight for medical care to be provided me saved my life. I know where children like me were left to die at St. Luke's Hospital. It was a utility closet. In 2014, I met a nurse who assisted in saline infusion abortions there in 1976 and delivered a living baby boy. After he was delivered alive, she followed her superior's orders and placed him in the utility closet in a bucket of formaldehyde to be picked up later as medical waste after he died there alone. A bucket of formaldehyde in a utility closet was meant to be my fate after I wasn't first scalded to death through the abortion. Yet, here I am today because I was ultimately given the medical care that I so desperately needed and deserved. I am thankful that the abortion meant to end my life actually occurred at a hospital, as the medical treatment that I needed was located right there. If my birth mother's abortion would have occurred in an abortion clinic, I truly believe that I would not be alive today. The medical care would have been long in coming to me, if at all. To say that I am grateful to be alive would be an understatement. No, we may never know if I made it all the way to that utility closet in the bucket of formaldehyde, or if I was simply laid aside. But the truth about the location of where I was left will never change the truth of the intent of why I was left. I was meant to be killed in an abortion, and then, when that didn't succeed, I was left to die. My adoptive parents were told I would suffer from multiple disabilities throughout my life as a result of the abortion attempted and my premature birth. Yet here I am today, perfectly healthy. Melissa Oden is the face of abortion. This beautiful woman, who now has a family of her own, survived abortion. How can any of us tell her that because of a woman's right to choose, she should have died back in 1977? The reality is, she was a baby in her mother's womb. She was alive. She was and is a person. In closing, I am praying that we make the right choice here today. Today we have the opportunity to be a voice for the voiceless. Today we can defend those who can't defend themselves. Thousands of unborn babies are depending on us today. We can't. We must not let them down. Their lives are at stake. I recognize that there are difficult situations with unplanned pregnancies, but let us remember this. The answer to these situations is this. She is a baby. She is a baby. Mr. President, that concludes my opening remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Is there discussion on Amendment 3142? The chair recognizes the senator from Mills, Senator Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I would respectfully request a ruling as to whether the amendment is germane to the bill.